And welcome and thank you for coming back. It was very important that we dealt to these issues today, and welcome to everybody in Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. You had a wonderful welcome up there, Hilda, but anyway, we'll move on. Just a reminder that the meeting is being live streamed and phones over, please, to the left, and welcome to the public. That's nice that you've come. And now ask Councillor Bentley, and if we all stand, please, for the karakia.
Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants, this day, as we arrive to do all things good for the betterment of the people of Rotorua. May we be tolerant in ourselves and at all times. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You don't want. Oh, I thought you might have got te reo or in Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. However, but it's nice seeing people having an attempt. It's great. Are there any apologies? No, there are not. We're all here. And now we'll move to any declarations of interest. There appear to be none. Are there any urgent items? And I have an item as well. We'll start with Councillor Bentley.
Guys, maybe an apology for early departure. And I have a matter of urgent items.
And do you wish to give an outline of what it is, and then we'll take them in an order?
Yes, this with regard to the email I think we all received last night or yesterday afternoon.
Yes, and yes, we did all receive it, and because we're only in the end of part one of a process that's sub judice, so we won't be discussing that in public, but we will be getting a briefing in confidential, just so all councillors know our future responsibilities. Councillor Gould.
Chair, I wish to ask under urgency that the Rotorua Lakes councillors hear from the Chief Executive regarding the government's action for healthy waterways, how this will affect the Lakes Council, our economy, growth, and what feedback we'll be submitting by the 17th of October at 5 p.m. I believe this to be an urgent matter.
Well, Councillor Gould, that's not an urgent matter. There are many policy statements. In fact, there are many flying out from government at the moment, and we will be considering our process of submitting back to those, so it's not an urgent item today.
Can it be recorded in minutes, your answer, please, Madam Chair?
It's not. No, it's not required because I've ruled it out. It's a statement from government that we will be responding to. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not aware of what your urgent item is, but I believe we have a decision on plan change for the noise issue, and I think that we should move urgently on that item and not wait till after the election. Perhaps we can bring that up and have a report from staff.
Absolutely. It is in our agenda today.
Not in my version.
Okay. Yes, but it will be addressed. And then if you have an urgent item, Councillor?
Yeah, I just wondered, and I thank you for your ruling regarding the three waters, and as you know, I won't be here after the election, but I think it's a policy statement that I understood government have come out as a national policy statement, and that there should be no problem with Rotorua's waters because all of our supplies comply with the drinking water standards that were set up 12 months ago.
It's quite different to this. This is signalling a new approach for freshwater management. So I think
so it's more
we
extensive.
need much more extensive.
Okay. Thank you for that.
So we shouldn't be debating that. I've ruled on that. The item that I wish to speak to is the tabling of a letter, and you will all be getting a copy. A letter that I've written to Minister Woods, the Honourable Nanaya Mahuta, and Honourable Phil Twyford about our response to government on our housing issues. And so I believe very much that we need to keep the pressure on there, and this is an issue of high concern to us. And so the letter will come to all councillors, so you know the lobbying that we are undertaking with central government and asking for a response. This is a high-level concern to us, the housing issue. So it was a letter written on the 6th of September, and I just wanted it tabled today on the public record. There's been some conjecture that we're not moving fast enough or with any urgency, and I felt it was important that we lobbied the three ministers, including the Minister of Transport, so responsible for NZTA. So you'll see the content of the letter, and I just wish to table that. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Benton, you've got your hand up. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for our Chief Executive Officer. How many people are employed to monitor social media in this council?
Well, Councillor Bentley, that's an operational issue. That is not an urgent item. It's rather odd that that comes out today. We could ask many questions about actually the annual plan. So I won't accept an operational issue. This is an urgent meeting to deal with items that we must deal with before this election period is over. So now we move to item 4.1, an urgent item that was not on the agenda. Plan change 4, noise approval to make operative. That was your concern. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry, you did let me know that Councillor Maxwell has to leave to go to Hastings, where he's going to be the recipient of a New Zealand Music Award for his contribution. Well, that's nice you reminded me. For his contribution to Māori music, and we're incredibly proud of that, and we wish you well, and I hope you have great pleasure amongst that group about your contribution, Councillor Maxwell, to kapa haka waiata over your lifetime. We wish you well. So he has to leave early. Thank you. Now we move to item 4.1, and it was on Stella, so it did come out, and Hilda did let us know. You got it now? Good. So we are considering this, but we have to meet the requirement of Section 46A of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion that the item plan change 4 noise approval to make operative be dealt with at this meeting? Thank you, Councillor Kent. Seconded, Councillor Donaldson. The reason why this wasn't on the agenda, but we were notified later, was it's to allow the current council to complete the statutory processes set out in the Resource Management Act within the current triennium, and to allow a recent suite of amendments to the district plan to be incorporated together. So, is anyone presenting this? Oh, I've got to put the motion. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Right. Is it Henry? Are you speaking to this, please, Henry? Plan change 4. Do you want to deal with it now? We can deal with it now. No, wait. So we'll get this now, but there are some decisions to be made around this. So sorry, Henry, you were caught there.
Kia ora, Madam Chair and councillors, and look, thank you for the opportunity to put this on the agenda. And look, the other reason we've brought it to you at late notice is because we actually only received the Environment Court decision confirming the final aspect of this appeal on Monday, which was essentially a consent agreement after an Environment Court process on one technical matter, part of the change process. So that was the reason it wasn't on the agenda as well. So really, the background to this, you should be reasonably familiar with. It followed the lumber cube process in the district, and what that process revealed was that there were a number of parts of the district plan relating to noise that needed some technical changes. So it went through a process. It's been through the full Resource Management Act process. As I said, one element of that process was appealed and questioned through the Environment Court. That was resolved by consent. So where we're at now is the end of the process, and essentially the only decision left for council is either to affix its seal to the plan changes or withdraw it completely. So it's not a time for more discussion or more development. It's a really technical stage of the process, essentially to tick off the changes. And one of the other reasons I think you touched on, Your Worship, is we've had a few changes to the district plan over the last few months. What we want to do is publish those all together. And because each change of the district plan involves changes to a number of pages throughout, it makes sense to do it all together. So, yeah, thank you for considering this.
And this is why we had to call a meeting to get these items tidied up. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. As you'll recall, Plan Change 4 was the implementation of changes to the noise measuring standards and things like that, which are highly critical to determining the ability for us to issue consents. For that reason, it is very important that we get this underway as quickly as possible to clarify any issues that are out there with current consents going through the process. I therefore urge you to support the fact that we should be affixing the seal to it and making it operative immediately. Thank you.
Councillor Donaldson, all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now a mover and a seconder that we approve the provisions in Plan Change 4 to the district plan, and that council instructs the affixing of the council seal and notification of an operative date for the plan change. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Kent. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. That's good to get that tidied up. And now we move back to the confirmation. Thank you, Henry. Caught a bit there. To the confirmation of council minutes on the meeting of the 22nd of August. Do I have a mover that the minutes of the council meeting on the 22nd of August be confirmed as a true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Rokawa-Tate. Seconded, Councillor Hunt. Are there any questions? There appear to be none. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now we move to a presentation, and you'll see it on page 13. And this was the findings from a youth voice survey that we didn't get in a committee that we wanted to present today. And we're getting that up? No? There's nothing. Okay, so you've all got it in Stella. Councillor Tapsell, do you want to speak to this, please?
Thank you, and thank you very much for this opportunity to table it again and speak to it. It was tabled in our committee meeting, but due to the number of items on the agenda, we weren't able to talk to it then. But it's quite fitting that as we conclude our council term, we're able to see some of the results of a survey from our young people on what they want to see for the future. So I'll take the report as read, but I just wanted to highlight a few key areas. So as you remember, after the student strike for climate change, council worked collaboratively with these young people to see how we could find a solution to some of their concerns around the environment. From that, the solution that these young people came up with, and it says in here, our solution to bridge the gap and get the whole community involved is the Rotorua Youth Voice program. So they've created a Rotorua Youth Voice group, and they then went out and surveyed 147 students around Rotorua, so that this report in front of you is a result of the key issues that came from that. The key issues were that youth wanted improvement on environmental action, youth mental health and accessibility, and more support for vulnerable youth. And it was actually quite amazing that these young people also came back with practical solutions to some of these concerns, which included the development of a social centre and restoration and protection of our natural environment. So I'll leave this here for you to read through, and I hope that the new council, whoever the new council may be, would take on the voice and the solutions of these young people to address their concerns around the environment and the future of Rotorua. So we have worked collaboratively with them through my lead of the Sustainable Living portfolio because of their concern around the environment. So there is action on the ground, and I'm very proud of the young people that have collated this information of not only their views, but 147 students around Rotorua. So thank you very much, and I'm sure you'll enjoy reading it as much as I did.
I just have a question, Councillor Tapsell, just the process of engagement. I was at the Hui at Owhata yesterday about the launch of this Pūtaki Nui, about young people and rangatahi potential. That's about how we encourage them into work and learning and ongoing education. And there was an issue there about engagement. Have we found the right spot to get those youth voices? Is it online or is it actual face-to-face?
It's a mixture of both, but online is a very valuable tool that we haven't used as effectively as we could. We have improved significantly, but through social media is also a tool that these young people are saying is a good method to use for engagement. So I do want to acknowledge the significant work from Council and through the Rotorua Working Together group and other youth providers around Rotorua that are trying to find solutions for young people in terms of education and employment. But what's really good about this Rotorua Youth Voice is it's for young people by young people. Yeah. So they've created an independent group that, while the Sustainable Living portfolio has assisted them, it has been completely led by them, and we are only here in a supportive role. So it's very innovative leadership journey for these young people.
Thank you. And the Pūtaki Nui was very clear to me, listening to the strategy, that it has to be young people and Māori-led, Te Arawa. And so it would be great if all councillors could have a look at this too, that's just come out. I think we pledged support, didn't we? Lee was there, and great. Councillor Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Tapsell, for the report. On page 14, you state that 147 students from all over Rotorua. Does that include the Lakes area, the rural area, Nongata, east side? Because it only works out to about 25 students per school of the high schools. So I don't know whether the numbers is great enough for you to obtain some of your information.
Thank you, through the Chair, and thank you, Councillor Gould, for your question. The focus on the survey was about qualitative, not quantitative. So although it's 140 students, the responses that came back were actually quite detailed, and there's a lot of it mentioned the solutions in here as well, so it wasn't just yes-no questions. You'll also be pleased to hear, and it's the first time I've seen schools work so collaboratively, but this group that led it, the Rotorua Youth Voice, came from all schools around the district, and they ensured that they got the voice from the outside the Rotorua city and the wider district as well. So there was representation from Lakes and also rural areas as well, and students from there. The ages of the students were high school age, so they focused from around about 13 to 18 years old.
And that's going to be a question for an incoming council, is how do we continue to get the engagement, to get young people to shape the next stage of council. Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, Tanya, for your report. It's great to see so many young people so engaged in the future. I have a couple of questions. One is what links there are with the DHB to share and work on this information.
Especially
looks like Councillor Sturt has the same question there. And also, is there a confidential portal on either the sustainability page on our website, so that, or somewhere on our council Facebook page, so that if that's the only page that comes up for someone, they actually can confidentially put a question or seek assistance or guidance that they wouldn't otherwise know where to go. So it's that, and obviously that needs to be carefully monitored and someone needs to look after that. I appreciate that, but I wondered, had that been considered? Our Facebook page may not be the appropriate place for it, but I would hope that there is some confidential portal that these young people know that they can enter some questions or ask for assistance on, and that is taken from this, because I believe this will grow, particularly since mental health has become such a highlight from the research. So thank you for that.
Yes, and next question was from Councillor Donaldson, Meripeka Rotorua, and Councillor Sturt.
Thank you, Worship. Apart from this obviously going in the minutes of this meeting, I just wonder how this survey results will be shared. And I'm referring specifically to page 15, where there is the youth view on two questions that were put to candidates by the Chamber of Commerce.
We should probably leave that. That's politics.
But I think, there are stakeholders that it'd be valuable to share this information with, let me put it that way. Just a comment.
Thank you. Councillor Rotorua.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think this raises, thank you, Tanya, for your comments this morning on the survey. It does raise the question about the role of council, because when you look at the priorities that have been set or have been indicated by the survey results, there are other, obviously, NGOs and government agencies who need to be, first of all, who need to be at the table from time to time, because they're always conspicuous by their absence. But really what it means, it does mean that the young people look to us for leadership. And I think sometimes they need to be clearer actually about what the role of local council is. But they obviously look to us to facilitate discussions in some of those areas, and particularly the mental health area that you've mentioned, and what the role of the DHB is, what the role of council is, but all of the other NGOs too, that from time to time we can actually facilitate to bring them around the table to start some discussions. Because our young people are dealing with some real heavy issues, and we can play the leadership role in facilitating the necessary discussions that have to have sooner rather than later, so that we can do some early intervention or prevention if required. But I think the young people do need to understand what the role of council is, that we can facilitate some things, but it has to be others that can pick up and deliver the services that they may want. So yes, so there is perhaps at some point some clarification for young people to understand what our role is, but also for us to perhaps be more proactive in facilitating in the future better services and more targeted services to the vulnerable who need them, and particularly our youth. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yesterday, Councillor Rotorua, that working together group is now looking at a steering group that's much wider, and so that you'll be very heartened when you read that report that was the strategy that was launched. Councillor Sturt and then Councillor Kumar.
Firstly, I want to thank Councillor Tapsell for her comments this morning. And some of us around this table have heard the issues of youth and people over many, many years, and a lot of them have ended up as talk fests and nothing ever comes out of it. But I'm encouraged by the hands-on action that these young people have taken, And I think the issue that you raised, Councillor Hunt, and also Councillor Rotorua Tate, I think council has to have a deep inward thought on what its role is and how it can facilitate. But we have to ask the youth where they see our role as and how we can assist them to meet the needs or to address some of the issues that they raised, because many of them are very, very topical at the moment. And I'm really pleased to see that there is a sector of young people within our community who want to take a responsible attitude to those issues facing the 10 to 18-year-old group. And it's also topical in the fact that central government is now taking seriously with the investment of $6 billion into the mental health issue, which has been lauded by the sector, it's been lauded by the health professionals, that finally there's a government that is taking notice that this mental health service needed to be upgraded. But there are also the issues of climate change and those who are vulnerable in our community. And I also take on board what you're saying, Councillor Tate, and council isn't the complete answer to all the issues. There is a serious role for the DHB in terms of its where it covers health and well-being of all members within the Lakes Health Board area, and that's an area that I think the DHB can assist in some of the forums that these young people are attending.
But they are there at the table. And there is another group, Councillor Stewart, that is meted.
Sure. Well, I'm encouraged to hear that, because I was going to say after the next election, that's where whoever's sitting around this table needs to facilitate, find out where this is heading, and if we can have a role in that, let's do it. So thank you for the report, Madam Chair.
Okay. And Councillor Kumar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to all. And thank you, Tanya. I haven't read the contents of the report, but it'll be interesting to see just exactly what the depth of it is.
It's on Stella. It's on you, Stella.
And when the youth came and marched on March 15th, there was a good message that they came to deliver to us. Unfortunately, it was lost a little bit because of that massacre in Christchurch that day, and with no disrespect to the ones that were assassinated that day or died. The youth, from the several messages that they came to deliver to us that day, spoke loudly, clearly. And one of the messages that I picked up was that they wanted to have a voice.
And this is...
And they wanted to have a voice on the full, was that. It is interesting to see, and it's quite encouraging to see that at the moment in this election period, that there's quite a lot of youth standing up. So I think the Rangatira are well represented. Now, whether they get first past the post is up to the voters, but yeah, that's one thing that I had really picked out, that they really wanted a voice at the full council, and whether that could be accommodated or not, or whether the new council can have a look at that, and probably that they will take a bit more ownership from that journey. I think that's what they want. They want a real engagement. They want and how they're going to do it and how we're going to accommodate that is something we probably need to look in the future.
That's right. That was my comment about a new council needs to consider how do we engage. Were there any more comments? Well, thank you for that. And we now move to our next item, which is... Oh, yes. Thank you, Councillor Hunt. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now we move to the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment contract for the Rotorua Museum. A staff report, page 19. Do I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? That the report... I'll just read it. So that the report, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment contract be received for the Rotorua Museum. Moved, Councillor Stewart. Seconded, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. And thank you both for coming to overview the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Portia's here because Portia has been coordinating our relationship with the Provincial Development Unit and has managed the previous setup of the previous two contracts. So this one has been added to the stable. So councillors, we're repeating the same process we've run with you before. We have applied to Provincial Growth Fund for funding. The government, through recommendations from the PDU, have granted us funding, and we've usually had a function where we've said, great, that's wonderful, and received the funding. But we've also made sure that we've brought to you the contracts, so before we enter into those binding agreements. So we brought to you, I think it was in December of last year, the two contracts for the lakefront and the Waka Forest development. So this is the third. So as you'll see in the report, this brings our total funding through the Provincial Development Unit and the Provincial Growth Fund to 41.9 million. We've received a significant amount to date, and though we won't talk about it in the public part of the agenda, you'll see the payment milestones laid out within the draft contract that we can discuss in the confidential section if required. Councillors, the one other addition I would just like to highlight in regard to the resolution is just part 3. And really that's just an important acknowledgement. It's signalled from the senior regional officials. They just wanted to make it clear that the funding that's been received through the Provincial Growth Fund and the Ministry of Culture and Heritage grant of $5 million is capped, and that obviously we take full responsibility if costs go over to fully repair and reopen our facility. So it's just an acknowledgement of that and their level of their funding. So we just have added that in as a part 3 to this resolution. So I think between Portia and I, happy to answer any questions.
Moved Councillor Sturt and seconded Councillor Kent, part 2 and 3. And we'll ask for questions now. Open for questions. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just on page 21, I think it is, just going to close the top part of my stella here. On the discussion on risks, JP, and I'm not sure whether it's a question for you or Portia, but the second and third paragraphs, just how sensitive is each of these projects in relationship to each other in terms of managing that relationship? You've talked there about partners may withdraw support if one or the other of these contracts is not continued with going into the future. And also, part 3 of the recommendation, and I'm a big fan of grand designs and how things can go over budget as a feature of those. So how rigorous will the project management be on this project? I know we're dealing with a very ancient building here, so that is clearly and quite rightly highlighted as a risk. So just that relationship to the other projects in terms of risk to funding for one or the other, and also just that project management aspect. Thank you.
In relation to the first one, the relationship to the other projects, obviously we've been incredibly successful as a territorial local authority to receive a commitment of $41.9 million. The Provincial Development Unit, and clearly it goes up into ministers, understand the challenges we have and believe in the way we've set our projects together. So I believe and certainly the feedback we've had is they understand what we are trying to achieve and that it aligns effectively with the goals of the Provincial Growth Fund for economic impact and value creation in this area. So they are very closely linked, and it's spelled out probably in the contracts for each of the individual projects and the overall outcomes we're seeking to achieve. So that's very much tied with those objectives of the Provincial Growth Fund. So all of these projects come together and help in that provincial investment which the government's trying to achieve. So closely linked. And do you want to pause there? Or?
Commentary to that through you, Your Worship. So this goes right back to the long-term plan and the discussion around the whole ring of reserves and everything that was, this is all featured as part of the business case for each of these projects. They're interlinked.
Yes, absolutely. And that's been part of the conversation about the lakefront development, and even through and with the forest project. One of the key pieces of that project was the linking of the lakefront to the forest. So there is the city loop description, and it probably pancakes onto another project that we have, which was the Sanatorium Reserve. So within this museum application, and you might have heard it from the Prime Minister when she spoke at the announcement, they very much see the government gardens and that cultural quarter as being another one of those pieces that link together within our ring of reserves. And again, it's that cumulative impact of trying to get this impact investment to lift the quality of our destination and support that economic investment.
Councillor Gould.
Chair, thank you for your report this morning. May I point out for the people listening on live stream that when you mentioned 15 million on item number 3 from the Provincial Growth Fund, that it's matched 1 for 1. That means every dollar the government spends, we have to match it with $1 from ratepayers' funds. So it's not a case of just getting the 15 million, but we've got to match it.
Yes, point of order.
Completely wrong. What Portia and JP have done is the costs of the museum were signalled, 2 or 3 months ago. I understood that the philanthropic community has come forward and it is going to be totally funded by philanthropic purposes. What this report states is that the 15 million and the 5 million from the Ministry of Culture and Heritage is part of the complete package to fund the reopening of the museum and get it fixed. And we accept any cost overrun over that. The council takes that honest risk, and that's what I understood this report was all about.
Do you want to speak to that, please, JP?
Your Worship, I think we have to go back to what we set out to do in our long-term plan. We had a number of projects, and the repair of the museum was one of those that was signalled in there with a significant price tag. This council made a decision to only part fund that repair. So $15 million was allocated to repair our museum, with the view that we would seek external funding to achieve the overall goal. So we've come through that process, and we have achieved to the level that we funded, 15 million, with positive community contribution and obviously these last government grants to secure sufficient funds, which have obviously gone up to 50 odd million, to fully repair and reopen the museum.
And thank you for that, because that's some of the misinformation that's being promulgated right now. And it is, it's swirling out there, and it's just good that we've got this contract here today so we can clarify that. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Without going into the details... Sorry, I'll start again. Without going into details of what's actually in the contract, there is one particular clause that I note associated with the Provincial Growth Fund that I think should be brought to public attention at this point, and that is the fact that if there are any significant delays or cancellation of projects, the trigger in the contract says any funds that have been already contributed by the Provincial Growth Fund are repayable. My question is for the Chief Executive. There's a lot of people standing for election currently who have a platform that says when they get in, they are going to cancel this, they are going to cancel that, and they are going to change this and change that. My understanding is that if one did so, you could trigger this council having to pay back millions of dollars that are unbudgeted. And my question is, since we as councillors are fiscally and financially responsible for such decisions, would those people that were elected that caused that expenditure to council needlessly be held financially accountable for the cost?
And that's exactly what we're facing at the moment. I'm right behind you there, Councillor Kent. There's just rubbish going around on this, and it's dragging us down.
An interesting question to reflect on, and you're totally correct that if a contract is actually cancelled, then council is liable for its obligations as stipulated in the contract. My understanding, however, would be that it would be council that was responsible and not the individual councillors who made that decision. I think the situation where an individual councillor becomes responsible for cost only occurs when there is actually a situation where of conflict of interest or whatever, where that can be directly attributed to some personal circumstances, and at that stage there is potential for some sort of visitation of cost to an individual, but otherwise no, it would actually be the council organisation that would be meeting the costs that would be arising from cancellation of any contract.
Okay. Councillor Kumar, then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rob. I actually fully empathise with what you're saying, but I think and I believe it's just speculation. That's electioneering, and people in weak minds can say whatever they want without any substantial backup for it. It's almost like any candidate standing out there and saying, I will change the housing policy. I will make sure that there's no short-term rentals and there's no long-term rentals.
Have you got a question around...
Yeah, my question is, what I was alluring to is, you are not the landlord. The landlord will decide. So the full council will decide. It doesn't really matter what somebody goes and promises. A full council will have to decide that, yes, that's what's going to happen. And we are all not dimwits over here that we're going to sit back and say, hey, right, just because such and such person said this. So the question is, are we going to make that come true just because somebody is going out there to electioneer? I think I'll say no.
Don't think council officers can answer that. Councillor Stewart?
I think we need to take a deep breath, and I just want to say I wish to congratulate Portia, overseen by JP, and in putting this case together and the application that went to the PGF. It would have been a daunting situation to put the business case forward, but we've had considerable community support, and these individuals, and Councillor Kumar is quite right, these individuals are absolutely dreaming. We have locked in the development of the lakefront, the Rotorua Art and History Museum and Shimpak, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to retire, because that is locked in the LTP. We have given financial commitment to these, we have signed contracts, we have signed tenders, etc., along the pathway, including this is the last of the ones that we're going to sign, because we've already signed the one for the lakefront, we've already signed for the one for the redevelopment of the Whakarewerewe forest. So those who are making those claims are pie in the sky. And as you all know around this table, you need 7 votes to change anything. And I doubt whether there'll be a hell of a lot of support, Madam Chair. I'll reiterate, I congratulate you both for the case that you put forward. To get another $20 million from 2 sources, in addition to what we'd already received, and a lot of people around the country felt that Rotorua has already had its fair share, to make this happen, and to reiterate what we'd signalled, Madam Chair, in the LTP, and in the annual plan, and in our financial direction that and where we're heading is a big tick for all of you. So, as I said in the response to Councillor Gould's point of order, the capping is set in motion as it is for the other two projects, and anything above that, that's a risk that we take, and we will cater for that in the next annual plan, because we have got it signalled. If you recall what we've got in the LTP, we can actually put extra funds if they're required. But our goal and your goal, is signalled by those around this table, is that we want this funded other than from ratepayers' funds, and to achieve that with the gifts that have been given not only for this but also SHIMFAC.
Have you got
yeah, well, I'm just summarising it just to say that the people around this table totally support with what you've done, and I just say when to avoid any questions of doubt to Mr. Chief Executive Officer, when will this start? Or has it already started and we've started spending this money?
We should probably go through those that are responsible. Would you like to answer that?
Through you, Your Worship, I was going to, I think Henry's in the back there, he's probably been quiet, but one of the things that's been happening over the last week or so, there's been a couple of really excellent presentations by Stuart about the museum project, and as you're aware, and he's reported in here, so if members of the public wanted to go online, it's on our Facebook page to watch that presentation. He details the extensive discovery phase that's been required, and they've had to peel back cladding all over the building to try and get an understanding of what needs to be done to strengthen that building, and there's almost a solution for every single wall and every single piece of floor and ceiling that had to be individually tailored to make sure that that building can be opened in a fit state. So his presentation, I think, covers that off, and I think that goes a long way to answering off Councillor Donaldson's questions about how much work has gone into this phase and the clarity of what needs to be done for the building. And that's backed by the expertise around project management that's been drawn in to assist with that. So maybe I can put a full stop at the end of that sentence and see if Henry wants to add anything more to it. But as I say, Stuart's presentation, if anyone wants to go online and see it, is excellent for what's been done to date.
Just through you, Your Worship, look, the only thing I'd add to that is we've already had a couple of contracts running. One we've talked to you about in terms of removal of asbestos from the building. We've got another contract running at the moment with Burton's Construction, who are actually starting to strip back the building. So there's a lot of work going on inside in terms of pulling out the non-heritage stuff, stripping out obviously all the fittings and carpet and things like that, and basically starting to get the whole building ready for the main contractors to come on in the next few months. But yeah, they're working in there at the moment and doing a lot.
Righto, Councillor Trevor Maxwell, Karen Hunt, Tanya Tapsell, and then Councillor Kawata.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, JP and Portia, for bringing some clarity to one of our projects. I mean, personally, before I ask the question, personally, every one of us should be celebrating what we've been able to gain from MBIE, and you know, tried to attend all the presentations, even when Cinderella was here only a couple of weeks ago, and you know, just tremendous. We should be celebrating. The question I have is, for the 4 projects, I mean, this is one, this is our iconic building. For the 4 projects, how much is MBIE given, and what's the percentage of the partnership funding that we've got on board now?
We've targeted in the report there just to say between the provincial growth fund money is $41.9 million, and then the MCH, Ministry of Culture and Heritage funding, was 5. If we then, I think what's detailed in the contract piece, which was part of the confidential, was also citing Obviously, the Rotorua Energy Charitable Trust's significant contribution, lotteries as well, and that's without even starting to talk about what's coming through into Sir Howard, which again is probably another 10 million in there. So across those different sources, we're certainly in excess of $50 million across those 4 projects.
Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, it's really more a statement, Madam Chair, if I may. I think that the community has asked for this project to be at the top of our mind. It has never not been the top priority. Unfortunately, most of the work, it's like the iceberg under the sea, went on unseen by the community, and it must have been very hard for the staff working on this to have the community continually say, drop everything else and focus on this, when there was tremendous work going on behind the scenes to secure this kind of funding. This kind of these kind of negotiations don't happen in the public. They're behind the scenes, they're highly confidential, and when the timing is ready, it all comes out. I would recommend the community, if they are interested, going online and looking at St Mary's of the Angels video of the church in Wellington, which was another significant historic building, and they will then hopefully have some idea of why it's taken us this long to get to this point of development, because if we do our homework up front, then we're far better prepared when the building starts. It's not to say there won't be the odd little surprise, but we won't be starting and have a whole lot of surprises that we could have already worked out. So congratulations to the staff. I'm hoping, I'm not sure where the management goes for the contract, whether it falls off you, Portia, onto Amy at this point under the project management or not, but I think the work done to date has been significant, and I hope the community now actually understand that this is not something we were hurrying, but at great considered space in order to get a great achievement for our community, and we have done that. So congratulations to all involved.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Portia and JP, for your presentation. I've got 2 quick questions, but firstly, can I just acknowledge the extensive work that has happened behind the scenes in consultation with mana whenua and iwi as well, through the Pukinga Koeke o Te Whare Taonga, which is the Kaumātua Committee of the Museum, which represents significant iwi, not only the mana whenua there through Ngāti Whakaue, but significant iwi and leaders throughout Te Aroha. So can I just acknowledge that process that has been happening behind the scenes as well. The first question that I had was just around the project management office in terms of risk, and can you just ensure us that, you know, we've got significant projects through that 41.9 million. Do we have enough staff capability and resource within there to ensure that we deliver on all of those projects, including the museum? And my second question is just around some of the concern that locals have had about this being focused on the tourism industry, because it does say in here, lifting value proposition and investment potential within the district's tourism sector, but this contract has a significant impact on the economic benefits to the local Rotorua people through the job creation. So firstly, are we resourced enough to deliver on this? And secondly, can you just reassure us this isn't just a tourism focused project, but this is actually going to create positive economic impacts to Rotorua through job creation?
Your Worship, I think answering the second part first, and then maybe it might be Thomas who needs to just talk about the functioning of the PMO office and the use of internal versus external staff for project management. But in regard to this, clearly the focus had been a discussion around lifting our tourism sector and our tourism destination, but you're absolutely correct, and that's why I premised my introduction around the 3 key projects coming together as being about about economic development. Because that is the focus that the Provincial Growth Fund has. They're more interested in seeing investment in the provinces and job creations and how those affect and benefit local communities. So that's their key focus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, if I may. I was talking recently to a Member of Parliament from out of town who's actually been through the museum and said to me that it's looking very sad and forlorn inside. Well, obviously it would. It's been closed and you know, getting ready for repairs. But I just wondered at some stage, I mean, I know there's a video up on the website, but I just wondered if some stage councillors, possibly after the election, could actually go and have a look, so we also get a sense of the job ahead, that lies ahead in terms of the repairs and maintenance, because I'm sure it is looking pretty sad and forlorn, but we do then get a sense of what the scale of the operation is going to be. So that's one thing that I thought perhaps we could put on the agenda for the new term. The other thing also is, yes, our community sees that we've been successful in getting significant millions of dollars, but I wondered if there's an opportunity in the near future for the community to contribute their dollars. How you do that is that, how when we have the lakefront and we go around with the buckets for a worthy cause, but I want our community to have the opportunity, if they've only got $5 or a gold coin, to know that in some way the place that they love has been able to be repaired for a little bit of a contribution or a donation that they've made. Yes, so like the energy. So I hope that might be planned at some stage in the future for consideration. That's just my 2 points. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm very aware that the Centennial Trust is very interested in getting that community involvement going. They needed to have hope in their hearts, actually, that this was going to proceed, and there is going to be the need for funding for exhibitions and other inputs into the museum once the restoration's complete. So there'll be plenty of opportunity, and I love your idea. I'm sure it will be part of a new councillor's orientation that we do see this. So I just want to speak now and congratulate you. I think it's fantastic. It is incredible. And I think those that are opposed to this have absolutely got rocks in their heads. I'm astonished at those that see a gift of up to 50 million, actually, when you think of all of the government money in all of the 4 projects that are so interlinked, as something that we say we don't want, or we'll pare back, or we'll just do a little bit here and that's enough. Well, that's not the aspiration that I see that I want to lead for our community. I want us to be moving forward economically and socially, and that's what these 4 interlinked projects do. And I cannot believe the trivia of the naysayers that say we're going to readdress this, we're going to rethink this. Well, we're not going to on my watch. This is an enormous endorsement from government. It's enormous. And when you step out of Rotorua, they're saying, what's going on in Rotorua? Wonderful things are happening. Well done. You've got up to 50 million, and there'll be more funding for roading as well, because we'll keep going there at central government's table. We always said, and we forget this, all councillors, we said that we can't do it on our own. Ratepayers can't do it on their own. That museum would languish. That museum would stay shut. If we didn't get that money, we would never raise this money without that provincial growth fund to get this done. We've got to get confident about our place. We've got to be confident about our district, or central government will say, go away, Rotorua. You're falling apart over trivia, and you're losing your confidence about what we're saying about this place, our people and our stories. So this is a phenomenal good story to finish on at the end of this triennial, and all of you that have supported it so steadfastly need to be congratulated. And I thank you for that. And I will never forget standing at the lakefront with Minister Jones. And he said, is the community all on board? And I said, no, some don't want to do this, Minister. But the majority of the community sees this investment as promoting our place that we said we needed to do in our vision, a vast majority. So I hope it doesn't get hijacked anymore by the naysayers on the dark side, because this is something that we should be proud of, and we will go out there and say this is what we believe and this is what we stand for in this council. And so congratulations on this. We've got to remember that partnership funding is the way that we've saved ratepayer funding. If we didn't get this partnership funding, you know our rates could be up to 19%. And that is shocking. And you'd never be able to do it, so we wouldn't do it. Nothing would have happened. So I can't understand those that keep quibbling away and nibbling at the edges of this so negatively. I don't want those rates to go up like that. We'd never do it. We'd never get approval around the table. So our concept of partnership with iwi, partnership with other investments, partnership with government, is reaping gold for our community, and I'm really proud of it. So well done, and I look forward to us going into the contract agreement and confidential. Well done. That's right. So we have moved part 2 and 3. I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Yes, I will, because especially part 3, I think, is very important. That Council approve the contract for funding for the Rotorua Museum with the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. That Council acknowledges that the Provincial Growth Fund allocation of 15 million and the Ministry of Culture and Heritage grant of 5 million are both capped, and that Council takes full financial responsibility for the completion of the repair and the reopening of our museum. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. Well done, carried unanimously. We move forward. Now I need a resolution to go into public excluded. There are 3 items, if I just highlight here. Adopt the confidential minutes of the previous meeting, our Rotorua Museum MB, PGF and grant contract, and our request for land transfer. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hunt, seconded Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. And I will repeat that they're to enable commercial activities, to protect all communications being a legal advisor and clients from being disclosed without the permission of the client, and to enable commercial or industrial negotiations. And